Aguero, Solskjaer, Deeney, Watkins. Sure, you know all about those last-minute goals, but have you heard the one about the on-loan goalkeeper who saved his temporary employers from disappearing out the Football League and into almost certain financial oblivion? Back in 1999, Carlisle United, managed by Nigel Pearson, were fighting to stay in the Football League. Carlisle's finances were precarious with a capital P that season, leading to a scenario where, with 3 games to go, they had to ask the FA to sanction an emergency loan deal to bring in a goalkeeper. Swindon Town's Jimmy Glass arrived at the club. His efforts in his first 2 games earned the Cumbrians 2 draws. Those vital points meant that Carlisle went into their final game of the Division 3 season, now League 2, needing to beat mid-table Plymouth Argyle in front of their own fans and hope their relegation rival Scarborough didn't win against Peterborough at home. The game at the McCain Stadium finished 1-1, and with the same scoreline at Brunton Park deep into injury time, Scarborough's fans invaded the pitch en masse, believing their Football League status was secure, convinced they'd done enough to stay up. However, there'd be one more plot twist. Carlisle won a corner in the dying seconds, and up came Jimmy Glass. In one of those you couldn't make it up moments, Glass scored from a rebounded header and was promptly swamped by teammates and thousands of fans who quite simply couldn't believe what they'd just witnessed. As for Jimmy Glass, he became an overnight celebrity, but he never played for Carlisle again, and his playing career never really kicked on after that defining moment. He took on various jobs outside of football before finding his way back into the sport as player liaison officer at Eddie Howe's Bournemouth, and most recently the general manager at non-league Wimborne. Not the fairy tale ending to one of the most Hollywood moments in football, but the name Jimmy Glass will live on forever as the scorer of that goal, arguably the most important in any club's history.
Oliver, lovely to see you as always, my friend. How are you?
Great seeing you as well. Yeah, very, very good indeed. I'm looking forward to the show. Action-packed show we've got tonight.
We were in a massive stadium, Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, a week ago tonight. The dust has settled. What have you been doing in the interim? I went to Dubai to do crypto fight nights. Huge crypto conference. Got back yesterday. Some great people in action. How's your week been? I hear you moved home.
Yeah, I've moved home. That's been chaotic, stressful, but we're over that now. We're in, which is great news. What a week we've had though. You know, with the announcement of Daniel Dubois, Alexander Usyk, July the 19th, Wembley Stadium. Both guys in the studio here. Actually, I was in with them on Wednesday. We had a great time there. They were up in the green room just upstairs, both sitting there, and all the camps were in, and it was going back and forth. That continued into the press conference as well. We'll break that down. We'll get into that a little bit later. But yeah, it's been a great week. Great week.
Well, let's do that a little bit later right now, because let's hear from Alexander Usyk, and I want to get straight to this. Alexander Usyk and Daniel Dubois in the studio this week with security. I think you were in there, weren't you?
I was in
with
there,
with Jim
yeah.
White.
I was in
with
there.
Simon Jordan.
Yep.
And a little bit of electricity between them. Have a little look at this.
As a fighter, you see them and you see what they've done, and then, you know, when you get the opportunity, I want to win. I want to beat him as well. He's been up there a while, and he's had his day. So now is my time. I'm really confident and ready to fight.
Do you still try to tell us that 2 years ago in Poland you beat Alexander Usyk?
It was about that, you know. It was, in my opinion, that was a proper body shot. I mean, you know, I could go over it, but it was a body shot that landed, and now I have a chance to clear up the controversy. You know, just right to say it clean. You know, I've come back. You guys have seen I've come back a new man, a different man, a new fighter, and I'm just excited to show that I'm on the rise.
Alexander, do you still insist it was a low blow? You had 4 minutes to recover.
Listen, first fight it was in the past. Now I live in now.
As you say, Alexander, you live in the
Yes.
present, not the past. Do you think this version of Daniel Dubois presents a much bigger challenge than the version that you fought 2.5 years ago?
В конце.
Valeria is just translating.
Listen, Daniel, it's a hard fighter.
Yeah.
Daniel win Horgovich, Miller, and Joshua. It's a great. Now, maybe Daniel better, but me better.
Where's the change come in you, Daniel? I mean, I remember watching you fight Joe Joyce and all the furore that came after that and all the headlines about you coming through.
Yeah.
You were going to take over the division. You had a couple of periods of years where you were rebuilding. Where's the switch changed from losing to him in whichever way you lost to where you are now?
I don't know. I don't know. I guess you could say I've
Do you believe more in yourself?
been through ups and downs,
Yeah.
and that's the big difference. I just really
Don
know how
Charles,
to turn
made
it
a big
on.
difference to you?
Yeah, he has. He's definitely has. My dad, Don, and the other people that's revolved around the camp that have brought new life to the camp have definitely helped and sharpened me up. So you're gonna see a new me.
We're going to see a new him. He's on the revenge tour. It's incredible to think it was only August 2023 that we were in Poland. And as Alexander Usyk pointed out there, Jarrell Miller, Filip Hrgović, the massive event at Wembley in September against Anthony Joshua, where he was spectacular. A new man, a new fight. The heavyweight rivals will share the ring once more. A chance, I've heard you say this already in the last week, legacy beckons for Daniel Dubois. The lineal champion, he can become the undisputed champion. I think he's got a much better opportunity this time around.
100%. It's a massive opportunity for Daniel, and he's improved massively as a fighter, but more importantly, psychologically, mentally. And Don Charles has been instrumental in helping him improve in that and believing
You're in
in
the
himself.
Don Charles fan club, aren't you?
I'm not in the fan club. I just know him very well.
No, but what I mean is you believe in Don's abilities to transform a fighter mentally as well as physically.
I tell you why I do, because I see it on a day-to-day basis. I'm in the gym with
In the
Don.
barn.
In the barn.
Overlooking Wembley.
Overlooking Wembley.
Incredible that.
It's insane. Daniel
So when Daniel gets out of his car every day and he goes and spars in the barn up in Finchley, he can see the Wembley arch, so he can visualise it every time he goes to training.
I kid you not, that was part of his training program when he beat Anthony Joshua. So when you come out of the barn, which is actually in Elstree in Boreham Wood now, yeah, it's on a farm. You come out of the barn and it's so beautiful, so tranquil, so scenic, it's unreal. But in the distance, on a bright day, you can see the arch of Wembley, which is insane. Every day, before training and after training, Daniel used to stand there looking at the arch for like 10, 15 minutes. It was part of his training program, part of his, and he's improved so much as a fighter because that self-belief since winning that world title, since dismantling Anthony Joshua at Wembley, back in September, and you look at that performance and you go, this kid is a formidable force now going into this rematch. He's the more improved fighter of the two.
Obviously, Usyk beats our British fighter by 9th round knockout in 2023, August 2023, but only after rising from that very contentious and very controversial and debatable low blow. I had it a borderline low blow. I thought Luis Pabon was within his rights. I thought Usyk milked it as well. He was down a full 4.5 minutes. We were both there for talkSPORT that night. How does that event play into the mind of Daniel Dubois? Does that strengthen him in lots of ways? Because even though he was well behind on the cards before he was stopped in the 9th, there was concern etched, I recall, on the face of Usyk all night because Daniel was putting him under pressure.
any heavyweight that you speak to that has sparred with Daniel Dubois says that he's one of the hardest punching heavyweights out there. They say that he's got phenomenal power, right? And Daniel Dubois landed that body shot. Alexander Usyk, arguably, that's his weakest spot to the body. You know, in history, going back to the amateur days, Beterbiev and people like that, you know, he'd been floored with body shots, so they know that that's where to target. He landed that shot. Alexander Usyk done what he should have done and stayed down there and did milk it, and that is a fact. But the body shot for me wasn't low. I think, like you, it was borderline, but I know where they wear the cups.
I'm going low, though. Borderline low rather than borderline high.
Yeah.
You're borderline high.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I think that I think they were very unfortunate not to have picked Alexander Usyk up and made him continue. But
he would have.
Oh, he would have continued, without a doubt, but he milked it for what he was.
Yeah.
He's using his experience, stayed down. I think Daniel Dubois' inexperience, he lost the momentum and the fight went away from him then. Usyk done what he does so well and just turned the screw and picked it up as the rounds went on. But that will give Daniel Dubois hope, knowing that he can hurt Alexander Usyk, because he believes it wasn't a low blow, and he will build on that and he'll grow on that, and they'll be working on targeting that body and going the attacks to that body. Obviously, Usyk will be working on defending that as well. But it's an interesting fight, you know. It's a different commodity now, Daniel Dubois.
All right, we're going to hear from Alex Krassyuk next. Alexander Usyk's manager, long-term promoter, not manager. I guess Klimas is his manager, who's been instrumental as well in making this fight happen. Come on, let's not sit on the fence here. How does the rematch go? Repeat or revenge?
I think you'd be stupid to not say repeat, because Alexander Usyk is the number one heavyweight of our generation. But if there's any one heavyweight out there right now that can give Usyk trouble or possibly beat him, it is Daniel Dubois. But I go with Usyk because you would be stupid not to. The guy's a genius at what he does in the ring, and he proved he can tough it out with Tyson Fury, those 2 victories over Fury, the 2 victories over Anthony Joshua. He can deal with the big men as well. So he always finds a way. Usyk is one of the best fighters of all time in the heavyweight division.
We were having this chat before we came on air as we ran through our notes tonight, and I do agree with you. I think that it's hard to pick against Usyk, but I truly believe that for 5 rounds, and I think he should try and detonate for 5 rounds, Dynamite Dubois, Triple D, will be very, very dangerous.
He's the most dangerous heavyweight in the division that can give him a problem right now.
Brilliant line. We will have Alex Krassyuk for you next, but I'm going to do a quick read for our friends DAZN. This was a look at the latest boxing action on talkSPORT, and don't forget, with our friends at DAZN, the undisputed super middleweight title is on the line tonight. 4 a.m. in the UK, I believe it is. 6 a.m. incredibly in Riyadh, where they'll be fighting Canelo versus Skull, live tonight exclusively on DAZN. Buy now at DAZN.com/boxing. Back next with Alex Krassyuk. Welcome back to Fight Night on talkSPORT with me, Gareth Davies, and him, Spencer the Omen Oliver. God, he loves hearing that on a Saturday night. My favourite 3 hours with Spencer Oliver, with you, and for talkSPORT. It's always a rip-roaring, fast-moving show. We're waiting for Alex Krassyuk, Alexander Usyk's promoter, to join us on the line. He's just having problems connecting. But I wanted to point out, even though it's part of the weird Wild West of boxing, that if Alexander Usyk does win back that IBF title he relinquished 7 months ago, that Dubois defended against Anthony Joshua at Wembley, he will become, in name, the first 2-time undisputed champion ever in history. So it's something to aim for. He's winning back a belt he gave away.
Absolutely. I mean, listen, it's all about history, legacy for Alexander Usyk, who's been undisputed cruiserweight champion, undisputed world heavyweight champion. You go, where does he find the motivation? Where does he find the drive from at this stage of his career? Beat Anthony Joshua twice, beat Tyson Fury twice, beat Daniel Dubois. He's beat every heavyweight in this. You know, that's why you can't argue with him, and you can never have him as a underdog going into any fight because of his achievements in the ring. But you go, committing the way that he has and the way that he's been has been absolutely outstanding and looking still to create history.
Alex Krassyuk is here. He joins us. Thank you, Spencer. Krassyuk is on the line. Mr. Krassyuk, good evening. How are you?
Hello, gentlemen. Nice to see you all.
You too. Very nice to see you. Let me ask you, first of all, you came to London this week. It's the fourth time that Alexander's been involved in massive fights in the UK. We know he has lots of fans here. Do you think they tried to ambush you with cheating charges on Alexander this time? That he cheated with the low blow? Do you think it got to him a little bit and angered him this week?
Well, it's a matter of fact that Dubois and his team, his people, are willing to get a victory in the upcoming fight. And this is normal for all of them to push as hard as they can. But the reason is, the thing is that Usyk is, let's invent the word, unpushable. You can't just...
immovable. He's immovable, isn't he? He's immovable.
Yeah. You can't throw words into his face and make him feel discomfort. It's not about like talks. It's about actions in the ring. So I don't think it can influence him somehow.
Tell us, the last fight was almost like a home fight for you guys in Wrocław, an amazing place, 35,000 just over the border in Poland. Many of your countrymen there supporting Alexander. It was a phenomenal night and a phenomenal fight. Incredible to think it's less than 2 years ago and so much has happened since then in the heavyweight division. But Daniel seems more improved. It's at Wembley this time, and he's carried a big promotion, as he did last September against Anthony Joshua. Is it a more dangerous fight second time around?
If you ask me personally, I consider this fight to be way more dangerous for Usyk than the previous one. Now we see Daniel Dubois, not a prospect, a young kid anymore. He's not a kid. He's a mature man who is holding a IBF belt on his waist. So this guy is different now. We expect him to be way more dangerous, way more focused, way more, strong, conditionally wise and boxing wise. So I don't think there's going to be an easy walk for Usyk. I think this fight is really, really dangerous because Daniel Dubois is growing up. He's moving up in his career, making just his... he's very young. He's too young. He's just 27, being a heavyweight, being the champion of the world now, and he's on his way up. Where Usyk is, and he's 37, is in a top position now. Yeah, so there is no other space for him to move up.
Alex, you said yourself there that Daniel Dubois, and I agree with you, by the way, that is the most dangerous heavyweight for Alexander Usyk out there right now. And, you know, going off that last performance, he would have improved. He would have grown on that. What does Alexander have to do different going into this one? Because we know what Daniel's going to do. He's going to bring the heat in. He's going to go early, and that's what he is. He's very aggressive. We know Alexander is great at adapting and changing things. What will he have to do different in this one?
Spencer, you know what? I think that the most important thing for Usyk is not to do anything different than that he did in the first fight. He has to keep the same pace. He has to keep the same strategy, being accurate in his punches, being mentally strong in the strategy inside the fight, and pushing it all as he used to do in the previous fights, getting closer to his plan. Listen to what his corner is saying to him, what he has to do, and not paying any attention on his opponent's actions.
You must be delighted that 60,000 tickets were sold on the first 24 hours. I'm sure it'll be a 90,000 sellout. It is a massive event. You're a man who helps Alexander to map out his career, to define the roadmap. Victory at Wembley on July the 19th. I spoke to Tyson Fury's manager earlier today. You know him well, Spencer Brown. Do you know what Tyson Fury in the background is talking potentially about? He would love another fight with Alexander. I know that you're not surprised hearing that, but if you were to predict if Alexander becomes only the first undisputed champion twice in history because of the vagaries of the belts, how many more times do you feel he's going to fight?
This number cannot be defined, neither by myself nor by anyone else rather than Alexander Usyk. He is the only decision maker, and he's the only one who decides how much more he wants to go. He mentioned already that a third fight with Tyson Fury is acceptable for him, theoretically, but I would say it would be more reasonable to plan it after this fight, not to look after Daniel Dubois.
All right, speaking from your opinion then, Alex, do you want to see him mop up? Do you want to see him clean up everyone in the division, i.e. Ajit Kabayel, Joseph Parker? Are those viable fights for you in the future, in your view?
How much more he can get? How much more he can take? Listen, he's a human
Parker?
being.
Joseph Parker?
Parker is a great guy. But come on. At this stage, it's impossible to answer this question.
Okay.
He has to go through Daniel Dubois first.
Alex, I was going to ask you that question, actually. A man that has achieved what he has achieved, being undisputed cruiserweight, undisputed heavyweight champion, beating Anthony Joshua twice and Tyson Fury twice as well. You go, where does he find that motivation at this stage of his career?
Complicated question. I would ask this question probably every morning. How can a human being, a normal human being, being from Earth, not from Mars or from Moon, find the motivation after everything he has completed in his career?
Yeah. Alex, where will camp be for this? Will you go back to Spain? When will you come to the UK? Same. You're keeping the same rhythm.
Same place. Yes. Yeah. You don't need to repair something that is not broken.
Yeah, well, listen, Alex, we are looking forward to this fight so much. Alexander Usyk's great on the road. He travels so well as an amateur and professional, and I'm sure we're going to get a great performance on July the 19th.
Thank you very much for joining us. And I've seen a swimming pool behind you in the background. I hope you're going to get into it when the interview... There it is. That looks pretty nice. So have you been for a swim, or are you going for a swim?
I was swimming in the sea this morning.
Oh, lovely. Fantastic. Enjoy camp. Hopefully we come to visit you with the talkSPORT cameras. Always a pleasure, my friend. Take care of him. Give the big man our regards.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Yeah, thanks, Alex.
Cheers. Alex Krassyuk, Alexander Usyk's promoter. They never get ahead of themselves. Like, he didn't commit to a fight with Joseph Parker, who I think deserves a shot at the undisputed title. They didn't commit to Ajit Kabayel. I don't think they didn't commit to a third fight with Tyson Fury, even though he said he would have one. But things have to happen for that to take place.
I'll tell you why, because they're ultimate professionals and they focus on one fight at a time, and that's what great champions do. They're not thinking about fights ahead. They're not taking their eye off the ball. They ooze class, that team. They really do. You know, I think that they conduct themselves in such a great manner. They're beautiful people to be around. You can't help but like them. But the way that they go round things is just utterly professional, and I love it.
Absolute, the ultimate professionals. That was Alex Krassyuk, Alexander Usyk's manager and promoter. We will speak next about Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua. It's in the news. They're apparently DMing each other a little bit. Will that fight happen this year? We will discuss next. You're listening to Fight Night on talkSPORT. Welcome back to Fight Night on talkSPORT. Tyson Fury versus Anthony Joshua. Now, the reason we're going to talk about this is because both Tyson Fury and Eddie Hearn have been talking about this week. Have a little gander at this. Monday, Tyson Fury, Sugar Hill Steward.
Just in the gym, happened to bump into somebody you might know. We back.
Got it. You know what time it is.
You know what's coming.
Yeah, I think that, Tyson's got a history of kind of, teasing a few bits and pieces when boxing's hot. I mean, he would have watched Benn Eubank on Saturday and must have just thought to himself, I could be involved in something probably it would be even bigger than that, which is hard to fathom. And then, of course, Dubois against Usyk gets announced. And, I think Tyson's a competitor. I think he's still got plenty left in the tank. And I expect him to be back. And, we just hope that that's an Anthony Joshua fight. But I guess that's down to him.
I'm guessing there's no belts on the line because neither are world champions. So do you think this fight could be easily made?
Yeah, I do. I think, in the past, it's always been one's a champion, one's a challenger. Now, both guys are in a similar position. They're coming off a defeat. Fury 2 defeats, but, they are to Alexander Usyk. I think they're both still pretty much in their prime. And, as we saw last Saturday, sometimes you don't need the world championship belt. Sometimes when you've got two champions trying to become undisputed, it's a little bit cagey. And this is Benn Eubank was just a great example of two guys that just went to war. And, that's exactly what you'd get with AJ against Fury.
Well, Edward Hearn there and Tyson Luke Fury putting it out there this week. Big tease, the big red herring there, the big elephant in the room was Sugar Hill Steward being up there in Morecambe with Tyson Fury. I spoke to Spencer Brown, Tyson's manager, earlier today, and we know how influential Spencer Brown is with many fighters. And he believes that the fight will happen inside the next year. He said he believes. Tyson hasn't committed to it yet, Spencer, but I think he's seen Conor Benn and Chris Eubank Jr. fighting last weekend. He's felt the kind of the draw again of the crowds and the noise and the ambience, and he's thought, I'm just going to put a little feeler out there. I don't know if Sugar Hill Steward's getting him in shape for being England manager at the UNICEF game, but that may be the start of him going, do you know what, come over, Sugar, I want to start getting in shape again. And one other thing, I've heard that Anthony Joshua sent a couple of DMs their way just to test the waters. Very interesting.
It really is. I believe that we do get that fight, and I believe that we get it this year. I think, but Anthony Joshua now, I know he's out with injury at the moment, but they're waiting around. They're just hovering around, waiting to see if they can get this fight, because it's one of the biggest fights in British boxing history. These two have been the biggest names of this modern generation. You don't need belts on the line with a fight of this magnitude.
Championship of each other.
Absolutely.
Era-defining fight.
Bragging rights.
Bragging rights fight. £150 million fight, this one. Sells out Wembley. Goes mainstream. Gets all the news talking about the finality of an era. Two guys who've been on the same trajectory. Different diaspora of crowds following them and fans following them. Their ups and downs, their ebbs and flows. I like the fact that Anthony Joshua sent a couple of DMs Tyson Fury's way, but on the chessboard, I think there is still, I think the fight unless Tyson Fury wakes up one morning and DMs Joshua and says, I'm ready, are you? And I don't think it's there yet. I agree with you, it'll be this year. If not, I think it'll be in the spring of next year, because I also have a feeling that Anthony Joshua's got one eye on Deontay Wilder's comeback, because Deontay Wilder against Anthony Joshua also works, in my view.
I totally agree with that. You know, that's
no belt needed again.
Again, yep, that's a great shout. But I just think that Team Joshua himself, the fight they really want is obviously Tyson Fury, and I think that without the politics of boxing involved, hence the belts and who's champion, who's not champion, what split we're going to get, they go down the middle, 50-50, big fight at Wembley. We get it late summer, you know, we maybe October, November time. It's an easy fight to make, and if both guys are in shape, they're only going to need 10 to 12 weeks.
Outside the investment of the Saudi Arabians in Turkey, Al Sheikh, or Turkey as we now know him, the most influential man in boxing right now. We'll come to that later when we talk about New York last night and Saul Canelo Alvarez and William Skull in the early hours of tomorrow morning for us in the UK and them in Saudi. Outside his investment into boxing, we know that he put almost £20 million into Benn and Eubank last week. Outside Crawford and Canelo, if that happens in September, is Joshua against Fury on its own with no Saudi investment, is that still the biggest fight in boxing?
Absolutely. I think that it's always going to be the biggest fight in boxing because the heavyweights draw that, you know, and they're two huge characters in their own right. Anthony Joshua's inspirational story and where he come from to where he got to, and he give a lot of kids hope, and Tyson Fury as well with his mental health issues and the way that he sort of advocated for that as well. This is a huge fight, the biggest fight in boxing still.
It separates the British public as well. It divides the British public.
Absolutely.
You said it just now perfectly. 3 words, bragging rights fight. It's one that will be talked about forever. And let's not forget, if it's a fantastic, controversial 12-round fight, if they've both been down, or like Benn and Eubank, don't go down, but go 12 rounds and it's very close, I have a sneaking suspicion we might see a second.
Gareth, I'll tell you where we're at with this, and I'm with you on that, exactly with you on that, because I know that Team Joshua will be waiting around just seeing what Fury's going to do, because I believe if it's both of their fights next, they do a return, and that will be the last time we see them both in the ring. And that's where we're at with it.
That is potential. I think this will be Fury's last opponent. I don't think he'll fight anyone else. I don't think, even though it's been teased to me today by certain people, that he may fight Alexander Usyk again, and they believe he can beat him a third time. I'm not sure Usyk will take it. It depends whether Turkey Al Sheikh gets involved and gets them in the ring again.
Absolutely. Listen, that's the heavyweight landscape and where we're at the moment. Still huge fights to be made out there with all these big names who are in the twilight of their careers, by the way. You know, you heard Alex Krassyuk just saying there, I don't know where he finds the motivation after he's achieved what he's achieved. That's Alexander Usyk. And you go with AJ being a 2-time world champion and Tyson Fury, the lineal world heavyweight champion, 2-time world champion. You just look at it and you go, where does it come from? Where's the drive? It's all about bragging rights for them two, and I think that's where it is right now.
Right, the elephant in the room for us, we haven't discussed yet. I know where your WhatsApp groups lie. I know you're in the Anthony Joshua WhatsApp group. Now, if those two step into a ring either this year or next year, and I think we need to look at those two scenarios, if it happens, let's say, late this summer, September, October, and I'm with you on the fact that genuinely, Tyson Fury might get out of bed one morning and go, I fancy this. DM to Joshua, and I think the fight's on.
And it's made easily as well.
I think it's made very easily.
Because of the politics out of it.
Exactly. With Hearn and Warren working very Frank Warren and Eddie Hearn working very closely together, both on DAZN, all of those kind of factors. No enmities right now. If it's late, because I think this is important, because if Fury doesn't fight Joshua until next spring, he'll have been out a damn long time, 17 months. But let's just say the scenario is late this summer or early autumn. Who wins and why right now between Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury?
Great question. $1 million question. who wins.
$150 million question.
Absolutely. But you just look at it and you go, look, Joshua's coming off the defeat to Daniel Dubois, and it was quite a bad defeat. You know, Tyson Fury's coming off the 2 defeats to Alexander Usyk. What has that taken out of him? You know, and so you go, who wins? I've always gone with Anthony Joshua because I just think that styles make fights, and I believe he has that style. And I know, hold on, let me just get onto this WhatsApp group. One
He's
sec.
probably answering you right now, so thanks, mate. You're still on board.
No, but whatever way, it's a great fight, a fascinating fight, because we're all going to have an opinion on it.
Well, I'm going to have mine.
And I know you're going to go with Fury.
Well, you don't know yet.
I do.
How are you going for a Joshua victory before I put my little six-paneth in?
Because I think that Joshua's style with his straight shots down the middle, I think he catches Tyson Fury, and I think he'll probably get the job done inside the distance.
Well, I'm going for Tyson Fury to get the job done inside the distance by about round 8 or 9, peppering Joshua with jabs. A few tricky moments, because Joshua's going to bring everything. I'm going for Tyson Fury stoppage rounds 8 or 9.
Fantastic fight.
Cannot wait for it.
Can't wait.
It's got to happen. We're going to go to break. Coming up next, we will be joined by Lewis Richardson, the light middleweight, the Olympic bronze medalist, the only medalist from Paris last year who's joined Frank Warren's Queensberry Promotions. Lewis Richardson joins us next. Welcome back to Fight Night on talkSPORT with me, Gareth Davies, and him, Spencer the Omen Oliver, grinning away because he loves the Omen. Well, he was a bronze medalist, not Spencer, but this man at the Paris Olympics. You were there to witness it last year. Lewis Richardson, the light middleweight, joins us, and he's just joined forces with Frank Warren. Good evening, Lewis. How are you? Oh, he's dropped off. This is a kid who probably could have played pro football, but he's our gain, the fact that he joined boxing. He's a standout because he was GB's only medalist at last year's Paris Summer Olympics. And we've had a rich history at the last 4 or 5 games of having 3-4 medalists to choose from. You've met him, you met him out there. How impressive was he both at that tournament, and how impressive is he as a fighter? I know he's a big, long thing, isn't he?
Yeah, he certainly is. And I've got to tell you, Gareth, when we was out there, they had quite a strong team out there. GB did this last year. And I looked at it and I was looking down the draw and the way that it was all set up. And for me, Lewis Richardson was one of the guys that I didn't think would medal. He impressed me, excelled, and he went out there. And I thought against Marco Verdi in the semi-finals, he lost on a 3-2 split. And I thought he was very unlucky in that. I thought he should have got the nod there. He should have been in the final, without a doubt. But yeah, what a kid. And he's great as well, speaks very well. He's got a great future.
Well, you're getting talked up, Lewis Richardson, and you join us now from... No, you're home. Normally we get joined at this time of night by people in their cars, driving around, getting takeaways, coffee. In fact, who was it last time? Nick Ball said he'd just stolen a car and was driving around Liverpool. Do you remember, Spencer?
Yeah, I do.
Lewis, Spencer was just singing your praises in Paris. Tell us about your recollections of that just under a year ago.
Yeah, fantastic memories and good memories with Spence as well. Obviously,
was a big support out there and really sort of backed me. I like the honesty also from Spence. On paper, the draw wasn't favourable for me. I was probably the least favourite Great Britain fighter to medal on paper, but we turned those odds around and we showed what we were capable of. So yeah, very good memories of Paris. Very proud of the bronze medal. Of course, would have loved it to have been a little bit more, but also very proud and grateful for what I did achieve. And as you say, Marco Verdi obviously just dropped on a 3-2 split decision to him. He actually makes his debut tonight on the Canelo undercard. So
That's right.
would love to run that back one day. Maybe an away day to Mexico City.
Indeed, get yourself over to Cancun or Mexico City for a big fight. Well, you're from Colchester. You took the medal back to Colchester, and on Thursday you revealed that you've joined Frank Warren's Queensberry promotion stable after GB Boxing confirmed that you were no longer a member of their world-class program, which is a bit of a roundabout way of it happening. Why the move to... you might have dropped off there because we've lost you on the screen, but why the move... Have we lost him?
I can hear you still.
Oh, you can hear us, but we've lost you visually.
Okay.
Why the move now and out of the amateur ranks? What presaged the decision in your mind?
The interest, the significant increase in interest. It was quite contrasting to me trying to sort of make that transition pre-Olympics, because you've got to remember my natural weight category, 75 kilograms, got taken out of the Olympics. So I thought I was going to turn pro a little bit earlier than obviously pre-Olympics. But I made the last minute decision to drop down to 71. Very glad I did make the decision now, but obviously off the back of that, of the profile increase and the achievement in Paris, my stocks certainly rose. So it just makes sense to make that natural transition over to the professional ranks now.
So what you're saying is, a pro at 75 kilos, you're going to be a middleweight, yeah?
Yeah, that's the plan. Yeah, that's the plan.
Let me ask you first of all, then, what you made of that middleweight battle at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium last weekend between Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn.
Absolutely fantastic. Was very impressed. I actually thought it was a better bout than I anticipated it to be. I thought Eubank Jr. would be able to sort of be in control a little bit more. But Conor Benn done very well. I think it was the right decision. I certainly feel like it was the right decision. But yeah, it was a fantastic spectacle, and I must say, Chris Eubank Jr.'s ring walk. I mean, I think that's the best ring walk I've ever seen. It was amazing.
Yeah, I think his father turning up there just took everybody by surprise, didn't it? And it was just one of those moments. Like even the Benns, you saw them in the dressing room watching the telly of them two coming in. It really was something that will go down in history. But yeah, talking about you, Lewis, I mean, 27 years of age now. You know, every 4 years the cycle is of the Olympics. You've achieved your dream of going to the Olympics and medaling. How excited are you for now turning professional as well, which is a totally different game?
I'm very excited, and you'll note that it's taken a little while to make that transition. I like to do everything the right way, and I'm quite methodical around my approach to life, in every aspect of that. So I took my time to make sure that I, got the right deal, got the right team around me, the right people around me, and it's a small but a tight circle that I'll be moving forwards with, and I'm very excited to get the journey, obviously. Cracking. Debut is June the 7th, so 5 weeks today on the Fabio Wardi undercard, and Ipswich Town Stadium is 20 minutes from me, so it's a perfect location, and I'll be expecting a big turnout from Colchester to make the short travel to Ipswich.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. Obviously, Fabio Wardley now facing Justice Hooney, the New Zealander, also managed by Spencer Brown, by the way, on that night. Do you have an opponent yet?
No opponent confirmed. I think my team were given a few opponents over the last few days, but nothing confirmed yet. And I just wanted to add on that, on the replacement opponent for the main event. I think that's an absolutely fantastic replacement opponent. I remember watching Hooney in the amateurs, and I think he's a very good fighter. And although he hasn't got the profile that Miller may have, and he's a very different style, he's a smaller, more explosive man. I think it's a fantastic fight, and I'd also give credit to Fabio Wardley for taking that, because that could be a sort of a tough task for him.
Yeah, Hooney's one of those guys that is undefeated as a professional and been waiting for that opportunity. And it is a great fight, to be fair. The styles make fights. Yeah. And Hooney won't take a backward step either. And we know what Fabio Wardley's like. We know he's going to be involved. It's going to be a packed-out stadium there. How good is that for you, by the way? Boxing, on your debut, packed-out stadium.
30 minutes from home. You can literally walk there with your fans.
It's incredible. You're going to have a massive fan base there. So you say Frank Warren's the promoter. Who's the trainer? Have you still got your amateur trainer now, or have you gone with someone else?
No, so it's interesting. I've had a lot of people ask, and I went to quite a few pro gyms, but I've actually gone with a sort of under the radar coach. His name's Dennis Adams. He's I've been waiting for this question. I've been waiting for people to ask me, but so I'm training with Dennis Adams. He is He's father of Billy Adams, who's a former Team GB boxer. I had a good relationship with Bill when he was on the squad, and I just thought, what, I'm going to pop down and see what feel I get. Billy's got a similar style to me. He's 6-0 as a pro, signed with Queensbury also, and I really liked what Dennis was sort of offering in the corner, offering advice, but also just the man he is. I'm very pleased with my choice, and again, I said it earlier, I've got a small team around me, but a team I believe I can fully trust, and have, got my best interest at heart, because we all know, and you two more than many, we know what business we're entering now. We know what game we're entering. So trust is a massive thing, and I'm confident I've got the right people around me to one, look after me, but also to help me excel and be the best possible professional I can be.
Yeah, well, you get the scaffolding when you're there with that brilliant amateur GB setup, but then you enter the Wild West, and I don't say that about... Well, it is the Wild West, because anything can happen, and obviously at 27, you probably want to have a 5 to 7 year career, open 2 gyms in Colchester and own an array of houses in different streets. Just tell us, by the way, I'm fascinated. We have a lot of football fans that listen to our show as well. You started a career in football early on as well, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, whether we can call it a career, Gareth, I'm not so sure. But listen, I love my football. When I played at a decent standard, would I ever made it? Who knows? But I felt like boxing was my real passion. I think what I loved about boxing was the 1v1, the accountability for whether you win or lose. You sort of own that, and you sort of take that on yourself. And I love that. I love team sports. I love sport. I love being active. And funny enough, I was actually at Col United today. I got invited to just to attend and let everyone know about my
Smart
announcement.
move.
So it's fantastic.
Smart move. Yeah, you can get a couple of thousand there on the night at Ipswich. Yeah,
absolutely. And Colchester, that they had one of their biggest attendances today, which was around 8,000. And I was pitch side before the game, and I've got a very, very good reception. So very grateful for Colchester, for the people getting behind me already.
Lovely. Well, listen, thanks for joining us, Lewis Richardson. We look forward to your debut as a professional in June at Portman Road. Have a great evening, and we'll catch up with you very soon.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, guys. Take care.
Best of luck, mate.
Pleasure. You're listening to Fight Night and talkSPORT with me, Gareth Davies, and him, Spencer the Omen Oliver. Next, we will look at the Times Square fallout from New York last night.
Aguero, Solskjaer, Deeney, Watkins. Sure, you know all about those last-minute goals, but have you heard the one about the on-loan goalkeeper who saved his temporary employers from disappearing out the Football League and into almost certain financial oblivion? Back in 1999, Carlisle United, managed by Nigel Pearson, were fighting to stay in the Football League. Carlisle's finances were precarious with a capital P that season, leading to a scenario where, with 3 games to go, they had to ask the FA to sanction an emergency loan deal to bring in a goalkeeper. Swindon Town's Jimmy Glass arrived at the club. His efforts in his first 2 games earned the Cumbrians 2 draws. Those vital points meant that Carlisle went into their final game of the Division 3 season, now League 2, needing to beat mid-table Plymouth Argyle in front of their own fans and hope their relegation rival Scarborough didn't win against Peterborough at home. The game at the McCain Stadium finished 1-1, and with the same scoreline at Brunton Park deep into injury time, Scarborough's fans invaded the pitch en masse, believing their Football League status was secure, convinced they'd done enough to stay up. However, there'd be one more plot twist. Carlisle won a corner in the dying seconds, and up came Jimmy Glass. In one of those you couldn't make it up moments, Glass scored from a rebounded header and was promptly swamped by teammates and thousands of fans who quite simply couldn't believe what they'd just witnessed. As for Jimmy Glass, he became an overnight celebrity, but he never played for Carlisle again, and his playing career never really kicked on after that defining moment. He took on various jobs outside of football before finding his way back into the sport as player liaison officer at Eddie Howe's Bournemouth, and most recently the general manager at non-league Wimborne. Not the fairy tale ending to one of the most Hollywood moments in football, but the name Jimmy Glass will live on forever as the scorer of that goal, arguably the most important in any club's history.
Got back from Dubai from Crypto Fight Nights last night, and I know that you've been moving home, so you probably lacked a little bit of sleep. But I stayed up for it. I know you've watched it because we've discussed this. Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney, and Teofimo Lopez, the big A-side names last night. Ryan Garcia losing, we kind of suggested in the build-up to that, when you create semi-finals, there's always a tendency for boxing to create the upsets. And Ryan Garcia was dropped by Ronaldo Romero in round 2 and ultimately beaten very convincingly on points last night. 115, 112 twice, 118, 109, which is a little bit wide. It was a welterweight bout. Romero, very impressive, but Ryan Garcia, not impressive at all. And he admitted something went wrong and he just didn't turn up.
Listen, it was a lackluster performance for sure. Inactivity's played a part in that. You know, he with his ban from the sport, he was out for over a year, and you could see that sometimes when a fighter turns up, it's just like he's walking through treacle. The timing's just out, the distance is not right. He got dropped, as you say, with that left hook in the second round, and it just wasn't his night. He didn't pull it together. I thought it was a very poor performance by Garcia with a lot on the table. We've got Devin Haney fighting as well, and that fight being set up for that rematch after that controversial decision last time out, the no contest. You go, he had to perform, Garcia, and he didn't. You know, taking nothing away from Rolly Romeo, who performed. You know, it was not a great spectacle.
It was a boring bout. Let's be honest about it.
But he done enough to win the fight.
We're going to come to Garcia and Haney in a moment, obviously, because this, as you say, was almost a setup, not a setup, because that's the wrong word. I don't mean the semantics to be wrong on that, but it was set up as 2 semi-finals for them to meet, as you say, the controversial no contest last year where Garcia didn't make weight. He tested positive for 2 different drugs. He was banned for a year. This was his first fight back. And Haney wanted revenge, and he's created a civil lawsuit against him. Whether that'll go ahead, we don't know, for grievous bodily harm, because he says that those drugs that Garcia took will affect him forever. And maybe, and this is what I want to come to and get your opinion, Devin Haney defeated Jose Carlos Ramirez via unanimous decision, shut out again in many ways, but a very odd bout in which... first time for Haney at 147. He never really settled. He was bouncing on his feet the whole time. Never really planted his feet. Ramirez tried his best, but they are different levels. But Haney never sat down on his punches very much. And the count the output, the counting of punches, one of the lowest we've ever seen in a big name fight.
Very negative performance by Devin Haney, and that clearly had the effects of that fight with Ryan Garcia, where you saw him there. He was very negative, didn't want to commit, didn't want to sit still in the pocket at all with Ramirez. And I know tactically it would have been better for him to keep that space, but we've seen him in the past where he's had to stand there and trade with the likes of Lomachenko in that 12th round when they're going toe-to-toe. So we know that he can do it, but he would not do it. And I'll tell you why, because of the devastating defeat that he had at the hands of Ryan Garcia, who had them performance-enhancing drugs in him. That's what happens. That lawsuit, I can understand why they're going for that, because it's clearly affected the kid, and, you know, mentally anyway.
It's unprecedented in boxing to see that kind of thing. So you are convinced, and this is what was going through my mind as I watched it at whatever it was, 2:30 in the morning, that it was in our time, that here is a man who is feeling his way into 10 stone 7. I thought he's starting, he's using the entire ring, he's circling, but he never stopped moving away. He never really engaged. And we know that he's a great counterpuncher. We know that he's very fast-handed. He has rapid hands. But for me, he didn't look right at welterweight. His best work so far has been at lightweight, as far as I'm concerned.
He's a box fighter. Last night he was a boxer. He was running away. You know, he covered a lot of distance, very negative, no self-belief. You could see that he was pot-shotting, throwing the 1-2s, just doing enough to win the fight, but it was not what was needed. You know, when you look at the spectacular surroundings, shutting down Times Square, whoever thought that would happen? This is their opportunity, their gift to box on this show, showcase their skills, and he didn't showcase his skills. We saw a shadow of the man that we know as one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the world in Devin Haney. I thought it was a very lacklustre performance, and I put that down to the performance he had against Ryan Garcia. You know, against Garcia, it was a bad beating he took there. That takes a lot of confidence away from a fighter. That may affect him forever.
So you think he might have had the fight punched out of him? It's a very interesting thing to say. Teofimo Lopez put in an interesting and I think brilliant in many ways performance, certainly entertaining. I certainly enjoyed it, against Arnold Barboza by unanimous decision. 116-112, 116-112. That's how I had it, not 118-110 to win the ring super lightweight title. That's £140. Similar in many ways, with beautiful movement and elusiveness, to what we saw against Josh Taylor. They never mentioned the Josh Taylor performance on commentary last night, and that's a slightly better performance as far as I'm concerned when he beat Josh Taylor. But he did look impressive last night.
Teofimo was brilliant. You know, his shot selection, the way he controls the space of the ring, you know, the confidence that he oozes in there as well. You know, he's one of the best pound-for-pound fighters out there right now. He's exciting, and, you know, it was his homecoming there, Times Square, a dream come true. And for me, yeah, he delivered against Barboza, who's a tricky opponent, very, very awkward to box and look good against. Yeah. You know, and we saw that last time with Josh Taylor against Barboza. When you look at that, you go, it's hard to get any sort of rhythm, get going with him.
Jack Catterall,
sorry.
Yeah, it's easy to confuse the two.
Sorry, Catterall. Yeah. Catterall, a guy who normally slips into a rhythm, couldn't slip into a rhythm. And I think the Teofimo Lopez did slip into a rhythm. That's the fight I want to see, by the way, Lopez and Haney.
Okay, I was going to ask you. Okay, fine. I'm not sure that Haney will. I think he might go back to £140 in my view, because that's where his future may lie. I'm not sure that he should go to 147 and stay at 147. But like you say, Teo Lopez, if Turki Al-Sheikh is offering big money, because there were three guys here, and the feeling was, I agree with you, Ryan Garcia and Devin Haney is not viable after that performance from Garcia last night. We can't have the big fight after his defeat to Romero. I don't think Romero and Haney works, but I agree with you. Lopez and Haney, is it 140 or is it 147? It could be either. The big one for me as well last night, will it be in Alcatraz? Because there's talk, will they be going to prison or old prison to fight? Times Square worked.
Yeah.
They might look back and go, yes, it looked interesting, but I think they should have gone for Madison Square Garden, in my view.
Well, I don't know. I quite liked Times Square.
It was
different.
nice.
It was historic. And
arriving in taxis, the fighters arriving in taxis.
Mate, we live in a world of theatre right now, and I think that's where we're at there. Yeah, we want the great fights, and Turkey Al-Sheikh putting those big names together. It's not his fault the fighters don't produce themselves. And
that's fair enough.
You know, that's what we got. But you look at the names and you look at the bill and you go, that's a great card. It never really delivered, but I liked it a lot. Alcatraz, come on, bring it on. I'd love that.
You'd love a bit of Alcatraz, wouldn't you? Well, up
outside
next,
the jail.
Outside, of course. Well, up next, we've got the Mayor of Hull for you, the one and only Luke Campbell. Welcome back to Fight Night on talkSPORT. I'm Gareth Davies. Spencer the Omen Oliver is my wingman for these 3 hours, and we are joined in the studio, not in the studio, by the beautiful and bearded Archie Sharp. Take a listen and a look at this.
Chance of Archie going from the home support. And I think the towel's gone in. The referee should have stopped it, but the towel came in from the Phillips corner. And Archie Sharp spectacularly wins by stoppage.
To your winner, Archie Sharp!
Well, there he is, and here he is with us right now in the mini studio. It's very intimate in here, isn't it, Archie? You fight next. You're moving up from super feather to lightweight against Maxi Hughes. Is you're going to join us on the screen in the next section. Friday, the 23rd of May, 2025, at the Echo Power Stadium, Doncaster, correct? And you've been there today doing the media workouts.
I was up there at the shopping centre today, but I was at the Doncaster a couple of weeks ago, and first stadium fight, so I'm looking forward to that.
A little bit of back and forth or not with Maxi?
Not so much. There's a little bit. There was a little bit of needle on the social medias, but to be fair, I think the fight speaks itself, you know.
25-1-0, 9 via knockout. We knew you were on the way to world title shots. You've been in before. We know your story, but we'll go over it again tonight. I'm assuming that it was your 30 last week. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Too hard making the weight, and you had to make the move to 135.
Yeah, for sure. I think I overstayed it a couple of fights, but unfortunately life speaks to us in all sorts of different ways, and that was my time to move up, you know, after that loss.
To Ryan Garner, was it just too obvious to you? And I think it was to me, you didn't have it in your body.
Just my legs wasn't there, you know. The first couple of rounds I was on my toes, and then before I had the cut, and then obviously I just didn't hold in the feet, and the engine weren't there.
I think that, you know, making weight, when a fighter gets to a certain age, you just turned 30 now, but making that weight is so hard for every single fighter, but you get to a stage where your body just can't do it anymore. I think we saw that recently with Chris Eubank Jr.
We'll get into that in a minute with Archie.
Absolutely. Yeah. But, like, that was a good move by you to move up. You know, Ryan Garner, we was down there for that one, and I saw you, and you didn't perform at your best. You could see that you'd far outgrown the weight. You're a big guy for super feather anyway. You're a big guy for lightweight. And that will set a different cause of problems for a lot of the lightweights out there, you being in that division right now, because I think that you're a welcomed addition to the lightweight division.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Like I say, I'm grateful for this opportunity. This is a great fight for me with Maxi Hughes. This is a fight that obviously everyone's got me as a major underdog. A lot of people are writing me off, but it's good. And I'm just excited. I'm just grateful to be back into a big fight, and this can really set me up now with what's on the line.
GBM card, of course, would just give a shout out to them because they're doing great things as having gone from a small hall show promoter to a deal with DAZN. They were on talkSPORT for a while. Can I just go back to those, as I say, from £130 to £135? Do you live a lot healthier now that you know that you can have those extra £5?
Yeah, and also, like, making 130 there's one thing getting to the weight, but there's performing, especially for someone like myself who is a very, like, energetic fighter. Like, all over the place, you know, like unorthodox. So it's a lot of energy. There's a lot of energy being burnt, and the tank just wasn't there. So now there's not much difference in regards of walking around weight. I do feel a lot better, like especially now being 3 weeks out.
Psychologically as well. I mean, knowing that when the date comes, when the week comes, that you aren't going to be straining your body to the extent that you may not even sweat in the fight.
Well, it was only the other day. I'm sitting there thinking I'm 3 weeks out, and where my weight is now, like that would have had to been. I'd have had to have been way under, way under this, and not. Well, not with it really. Not really with it.
Do you think now, right? Look, because I know exactly what you're talking about here with making weight. Because
you were a big bantamweight.
Yeah, and I had huge problems making the weight towards the end. But so I know the difference between jumping from bantam to super bantam, and even should have gone up to featherweight. But now you look at it, right, and you go. Like you're here and you're coming up to this and you've still got to lose weight to make the lightweight. Do you look at it now and go, how did I ever make super feather?
How did I make that weight?
And people that are listening will go, you're talking about £5, 130, 135. You go, but £5 to a boxer is £5 of fluid, which is a lot of fluid to make. And it's mad, isn't it? When you step up in weight, you go, how did I ever do that? And you're talking about
why did I ever do that?
Why did I do it? Yeah, it was only the other day I was chatting to my manager and I sent over a picture of the day before, and I was like, I didn't look right.
We mentioned Alcatraz earlier, and you probably felt like you'd been in prison there at times looking at yourself.
We was down there when he boxed Gainer, weren't we?
He was skeletal.
Sorry. Yeah, we was down there when you boxed Garner, and you could see it in your, like, you could see it visually with you. Like, he's look at you at the weigh-in, and you go, you look gaunt and drawn, your eyes are sunken dark, and you go, he's dead at the weight. You know what I mean? You could see that, and then the first bell rings, and you could see that in your performance. He was not the Archie Sharp that we've known in the past.
One of those things is, it's a very, very good point, but one of those things is performance, but the other one is long-term health as well. And I'm really pleased. We know how good you are. We know that your ambition and your drive is to be at world level, and we know you're capable of it. But, for example, last weekend, we haven't dissected last weekend yet on the show, but let's talk about it for a moment. When you watched Chris Eubank not be able to make the weight by a Cadbury's cream egg and get fined 375 grand, and he couldn't sweat during the fight, and then had chronic dehydration problems after the fight, in hospital for 36 hours. We have to take that seriously, don't we?
It's dangerous, very, very dangerous. This sport's hard enough as it is, let alone doing things like that, you know, and you can see it in the performance. Like, even though both fighters give it all, it was a great fight to watch, but there was just times there where I just felt like it could be any point he could just get caught.
Yeah.
Because he just didn't look himself. I just think it's too tight.
It's like you can't put health over wealth when you're getting into the ring.
But people do when they're fighters and when they're young, and that's what you'll do.
But what you're doing, Gareth, is like when you get to that stage, when you see, because like we didn't know, I was talking about it in the build-up with Chris Eubank Jr. and saying about him making, he's made 160.
He's done it for the last 5 fights,
since 2019. Well, but then when he highlighted just the struggles that he was actually having with the video, you go, now you're getting into territory where you go, you know, you're putting the sport into disrepute if, God forbid, something happens, because like the extremes that he went to make that weight, and us fighters, we all go through that. We all go through it where you're pushing it to that sort of level, and you always think, yeah, just one more, but that one more can cost you your life. So you've made the right decision by moving up, because, like I say, you've got a future at lightweight, but you can have no future at all.
Exactly
at the super feather. Do you get me?
Imagine if you'd stayed there to 35, not 30. You're making the decision at the right time. And just to finish on Benn and Eubank, we'll come to it later on in the show as well, because it's one of our segments tonight. With the money on offer for the rematch, he'll probably do it again. What do you think of that?
It's sad to see, because, like you say, they've obviously made a fortune anyway in their career. Do they really need to go and put your health?
Yeah, but if you were in that position and you were offered another 10 million to make super featherweight, would you do it or not? Be honest.
I'll be honest with you. If I've made a fortune out of it already, I probably wouldn't. I'll tell you the reason why. It's just I've got 4 kids as well. You know, like there is some stage where you have to be smart. Like, I was fortunate to.
And you'd won already.
Yeah, but do you know what, Gareth? You go. It gets to the point where you go, at what cost?
Hey, listen, it's a horrific debate to have, and I just feel with Eubank that he'll just be tempted to take the second fight.
He probably will because of the money. Yeah, I just think, you know, like being.
But you wouldn't.
I doubt I would. If I was in that position and I had the money they had, I don't think I would.
You've got your wife and your kids in your mind.
Exactly
yeah?
that.
Oh, that's
dangerous.
interesting.
It's dangerous as it is. You know, I was fortunate to have a close loss against Gardner to make that decision. It could have been a lot worse than that. And if I won that night, no doubt I'd have stayed at 130 again to get
That's
that
what
ABU.
I'm saying. He won, didn't he?
Yeah, and he won, and exactly. But
Mate,
it's just-
that's the
It's that carrot.
That's
It's
the
that carrot.
worst decision I ever made. It's cost me my career and nearly my life.
Yeah.
Just because I was going up in them rankings. I was WBC number 2, WIBF number 2, and the opportunities were all there, but I couldn't make the weight anymore. And then I go, at what cost? Well, it cost me my career, nearly my life. And that's the reality of it.
Yeah.
That is the reality of it. You know, there's one fight too many. And I just hope that Chris comes to his senses. His father said it already as well, and go, look, finish your career at 168. Chase the Canelo fight.
Yeah.
That's where it's at, because that's where
hang
you'll
on
be a
minute.
much better fighter.
We're getting into that debate right now. How hypocritical was Eubank Sr. by saying the whole way along and prodding people like me in the chest and saying, do your job and critique the fight? Yes, he turned up because he loves his son, and I get that bit. But he will start the bandwagon. He enjoyed the moment in the limelight. He enjoyed watching his son fight. They put them on 2 plush chairs, himself and Nigel Benn, and they were up enjoying the contest and the adulation and the crowd. And I don't know if they got paid or not to be there. If they did, brilliant. But he will probably be against his son fighting a second time, even though he'll probably be there again.
I think he'll be against the whole weight thing. I think that there's no issue.
No, not the fight, the weight thing.
The
Absolutely.
whole weight thing. I mean, look, we're looking at one of the... Well, that will go down in history as one of the best British fights that lived up to their fathers. We never expected that. You know,
I
we've
didn't
always
expect that.
thought they were their father's sons. But what we got there was like 2 fighters... And forget what anybody says. You've got 2 world-class fighters there that delivered and left it all in the ring. That will go down in history, that fight.
Let's go back to Archie and his life. Thank you for discussing that with us. And it's a very, very serious point on boxing. Probably the most serious thing, because you guys are all addicted. Remind everyone listening, you are addicted. This is why you do it. And we love to observe it and watch it and commentate on it all. Remind everyone who's listening, because we have a big audience for tonight's show, how and why you got involved in boxing.
So I was just an active kid. My dad took me to a local gym. I've done all sorts of sports, rugby, football.
Good at them as well, I take it.
Yeah, I was decent at swimming as well. Like, I love swimming, but boxing was kind of the one where I could just channel that energy and burn myself out, you know what it's like, especially old school training, hard work, blood, sweat and tears, as they say. And so I burnt a lot of energy, and then I just, fell in love and ended up being half decent at it, winning a few national titles and stuck with it.
How mad is that, though? Like, you're good at all sports, and you can see that your physicalities would tell us that you'd be good at football, you'd be good at basketball, you'd be good at rugby. We can see that.
Fast twitch, haven't you? You've got fast twitch.
But how mad is it? You go, the one sport that you choose is the hardest sport of all, as in, like, you get a bit of level whacking you in the face and you think, that's the sport I want to do. It's when you think about it, the insanity around us boxers, because I was the same, 7-year-old kid. You go down there and you go, out of all the things that you choose the hardest of all, and you go, there's an insanity around that, right?
And there's me trying to steer my boy away from it.
Really?
Yeah, well, that's what boxers do, don't they?
Yeah, 100%.
What do you want him to do instead, then?
He loves football. Look, anything he wants to do, I'm behind him, you know. And
what's his name? Give him a shout out. He's probably listening.
Yeah, little Presley. Yeah, little Presley.
Presley.
Yeah, so he's football mad. So I push him wherever he wants to go, you know. But he does want to get in a gym, and I will take him to the gym. But I just look back. I've done a little video. I don't know if anyone see it on Instagram. Just saying about being 10 years old, like that old school training. I've been 10 years old in a sweatsuit on a running machine for an hour and then sparring.
It's insane.
That's what I used to do. Like,
well, at least you weren't made to do 2 hours of press-ups at the age of 10, like Daniel Dubois was by his dad. No food and water, unless he did press-ups for 2 hours. Mate, I mean, it's kind of insane what you go through as a young person in the boxing world, isn't it?
Yeah,
the runs, never being late, the best coaches, no chocolate, all those things. People don't realise the discipline in the background.
But it's made me as a person, you know. Like I look at it now and I say I don't want to put my son through it. But then on the flip side to it, like it's made me who I am today. Like I'm so disciplined in everything. Like, I don't drink and just discipline with life. Timing, everything.
That's the bit, isn't it? Like it builds character, and that's why boxing is the best form of discipline for anyone. It teaches those life skills. You don't have to become a boxer, but as long as you go in the gym and you get those life skills and learn that discipline and that self-respect and to respect others, That's what you get from boxing.
Yeah, a lot of boxing.
Hold it there, Archie. Hold it there, Spencer. We are going to be back with Archie in a minute. Obviously, he takes on Maxi Hughes on Friday, the 23rd of May, 2025, at the Echo Power Stadium, Doncaster. Well, up next, Maxi Hughes not in the studio. The opponent joins us on the screen. Let's see what we can create. Welcome back to Fight Night on talkSPORT. Very animated discussions in the mini studio here with Spencer Oliver and the wonderful bearded. It looks like a biker tonight. It looks like Hell's Angel. I'm asking why the beard's growing so long. It's Archie Sharp. Well, we've had a bit from Archie. We have a 4-quartet split screen now because Maxi Hughes joins us. They fight, of course, Archie Sharp and Maxi Hughes on Friday, the 23rd of May. Good evening, Maxi. How are you?
I'm all right, mate. I'm a bit tired, to be honest. I'm usually asleep by now, but I've made a special exception for you boys.
Are you saying a special exception because you're on air with Archie Sharp pushing your fight?
Yeah, it seems that way, doesn't it?
Very quickly, in 2022, I think you came to British prominence with, I know you'd already had quite a long career at that point, the victory over Kid Galahad, which was very celebrated, and then 2 big names that you fought, both in Las Vegas and in Fire Lake Arena, Shawnee, George Kambosos and William Zepeda. You now come to the point where a younger man is moving up a weight division and says he's going to take your scalp. How do you feel about that?
I just see it as another fight. You know, I don't see that as any special kind of wording towards me. It's another challenge in front of me. The same way I had to challenge Kid Galahad, George Kambosos, William Zepeda. Fight's a fight, you know. I don't, you know what I mean? It's a fight to me, and I prepare the same every time.
What are you bringing, Archie, that Maxi has not or will have to experience on the night?
Well, I just think for myself, it's more like, obviously I'm coming off a defeat, coming up in weight. So for myself, it's like, this is my opportunity, you know, for me to change my life. He's had his opportunity. I look at it as he's had his shots. I feel like he beat Kambosos and he was very hard done by them.
Yeah,
so then he got another shot, obviously, against Zepeda. Listen, he's had a fantastic career, and I said to you before, I am a fan of Maxi Hughes. I think he's a great fighter. I just feel like it's my time, and I've just got to do what I need to do to put my family on the map now, you know?
Maxi, I just wanted to ask you the question, mate. You've competed at a very high level. We all thought you was unlucky against Kambosos, and you look what he's achieved. You competed at that level. How do you motivate yourself, you know, in these sort of fights when you've had a career like you've had and been around as long as you have? Where's the motivation come from?
The motivation comes from, you know, as you just said, Spencer, I felt like everyone felt. I went and stood George Kambosos on his head, and if I'd have got the green light that fight, which I should have done, I'd have been able to, you know, fight one of my idols, you know, still is Lomachenko, for that world title. You know, I was IBO world champion, which I'm very proud of and regard it as a world title. Obviously, there's still people who don't recognise that as one of the main 4. So my motivation is to get one of those main 4, and I've shown myself that I can do it by beating Kambosos in the eliminator. Obviously, the boxing politics didn't allow me to get there, so I've been so close. I've had it in my grasp. It's been here. I know what it takes to get there, but I've not actually achieved it. And then, obviously, after the Kambosos kerfuffle, I got rewarded by fighting William Zepeda. And, you know, it's no excuses, because I was the one who decided to get in ring, you know, after being deported 2 weeks out from the fight from Las Vegas to spend a crazy week travelling all over the UK to get rushing around to get my visa. We got there, but, you know, I wasn't right. You know, it's not an excuse because I could have pulled out. You know, the IBF ordered us to fight. You know, I'm sure if I'd have asked for it rescheduled because I've got visa issues, I'm sure that would have happened. But I was adamant. I told myself I'll be all right. And, you know, I could have been 100% on night and William Zepeda still might have beat me because, you know, he's now mandatory for WBC. He's a phenomenal talent. So, again, I've been in there with the kids who are at that level. And, you know, I still put myself out there. You know, when the stars align for me, I believe, you know, I'll have my night, and that's my motivation. That's what, you know, just this morning, every Saturday morning, I get out of bed at 4:30 in the morning. I go and do my road work to tell myself, are you still motivated? Can I still get myself out of bed at that time in the morning when, you know, everyone would obviously like to roll over and have them extra hours of sleep. But, you know, at my age and after my career, that tells me everything that I need to know. I can still get out of bed and I can still put the work in and get myself up for these fights.
Max, there's no silk pyjamas for you, obviously. Archie, when and I do recall now that extraordinary journey to that fight that you had to do halfway around the world to get there. We do admire you for that. When you hear Maxi talking like this, he's ranked number 4 with the WBA. Gervonta Davis, the champion. William Zepeda, the number 1. We know that William Zepeda and Shakur Stevenson are now matched up. I'm going to ask both of you the opinion about that one in a minute. But does that put it into perspective what a victory can do for you over Maxi Hughes?
Massively. Especially, like I said, but everyone writing me off and having me as the underdog, like, it just gives me the drive even more. But what's at stake? I mean, there's so much there that could change my life. This is why.
Is he in the way of you?
Yeah, for sure. This is why when the fight was offered, like Maxi will agree as well. Within 12 hours, like it wasn't no hesitation. You know, I know what's at stake. Like, I didn't go, maybe. I was like, yeah, no problem. We'll have the fight. Like, I believe in my ability, just like he probably believes in his ability. So, but for me to showcase, I haven't been able to showcase how good I really am, and this is the fight that I need to do so.
Is he making a big mistake coming up and taking you in his first fight at lightweight, Maxi?
Obviously, I believe so. In my experience, yeah, I've done that move myself from super featherweight to lightweight, and I do feel it took me, you know, a couple of goes. You know, when I did step up, I came up against Liam Walsh at the time, who, you know, I rate very highly. You know, and I wasn't quite ready. But, you know, I suppose I learned that, you know, it was a loss on my record, but it was a good learning fight for me. And, you know, I feel like that helped me be established as the lightweight I am now.
You took revenge over Ryan Walsh then instead afterwards, later on in your career. The 3 Walsh brothers. Shout out to you boys in Chroma tonight. Much love to you all whenever I bump into you. We're going to have to break in a minute. Let me ask you both. Do you like the Shakur Stevenson, William Zepeda matchup, Maxi? Who wins and why?
I do. Recently, if you'd have asked me straight after I fought William, I'd have gone William. But since he's boxed Tevin Farmer, very slick, southpaw, he's showed some chinks there. And I think somebody on Shakur's level will watch that and feel like he can expose that. So I would say Shakur, tight but on points. Very tight, close fight though.
To be fair, I echo that. I thought the same. Zepeda, at the start I thought Zepeda would kind of be too much pressure, but then seeing the Tevin Farmer 2 fights, I think it'll be, like I say, a close fight, points decision for Shakur. I think it'd be a little bit too clever.
He's one. How are you seeing it, Spence? Very quickly.
Yeah, I think Shakur's going to be too smart, and I think he'll be too slick, and I think he wins the fight.
He's one of those weird people that gets critiqued because he makes boxing look so easy, and I mean that in the true sense of the word. Maxi, before we say goodbye, have you got a final message for this man, Archie Sharp, sitting to my left?
Just all the best at rest of training. You know, we're down to the last nitty-gritty bit of training camp now where injuries and Kim, so look after yourself, Archie, and I'll see you soon, pal.
Archie?
Yeah, vice versa, mate. Like you say, look after yourself, enjoy the rest of the camp, and 3 weeks we'll both be in there.
And within a couple of hours, you'll be having a go at each other on the socials, yeah?
Don't you just love that about boxing?
Exactly.
We'll have to flick that switch off. We'll flick that switch and get to business.
How did you feel when you saw each other face to face earlier today? Was there any staring down? Was there any
No, it's like, again, Archie's not that kind of lad. I'm not that kind of lad. We've been respectful from the off. I've actually followed Archie's career and he's followed mine. It's not that kind of fight, you know, and I know the fans don't like that, but this is boxing and that's just the kind of person I am. I won't change and I won't be disrespectful because it's not who I am. You know, I'm sort of, I suppose, a no-nonsense fighter, and I believe Archie's same. So it's about, you know, the switch will go as soon as the bell goes for the first round. We'll do what we need to do, and we'll shake hands after, and we'll go back to our families.
Yep. Listen, like I say, it's exactly the same as me. You know, like we're both very respectful. I think this fight itself talks itself. We're both game enough for the fight, and we'll both put it on the line in Doncaster.
Well, since Maxi got up at 4:30 this morning, we've kept him up late tonight. Enjoy your sleep. Look forward to the fight. Thanks for joining us, Maxi.
Yeah,
great to see you. Cheers, buddy.
Cheers, mate. Good night. Right.
And I've got to say, Archie, thank you very much for joining us in the studio tonight. It's been great to see you, my brother.
Thank you for
always great. Great
Best
words.
of luck, mate. Looking forward to the 23rd.
Conversation.
No, God bless you,
absolutely.
thank you.
Really looking forward to it. It's going to be a cracker. You're listening to and watching Fight Night on talkSPORT. Myself and Spencer will be back right after this.
Aguero, Solskjaer, Deeney, Watkins. Sure, you know all about those last-minute goals, but have you heard the one about the on-loan goalkeeper who saved his temporary employers from disappearing out the Football League and into almost certain financial oblivion? Back in 1999, Carlisle United, managed by Nigel Pearson, were fighting to stay in the Football League. Carlisle's finances were precarious with a capital P that season, leading to a scenario where, with 3 games to go, they had to ask the FA to sanction an emergency loan deal to bring in a goalkeeper. Swindon Town's Jimmy Glass arrived at the club. His efforts in his first 2 games earned the Cumbrians 2 draws. Those vital points meant that Carlisle went into their final game of the Division 3 season, now League 2, needing to beat mid-table Plymouth Argyle in front of their own fans and hope their relegation rival Scarborough didn't win against Peterborough at home. The game at the McCain Stadium finished 1-1, and with the same scoreline at Brunton Park deep into injury time, Scarborough's fans invaded the pitch en masse, believing their Football League status was secure, convinced they'd done enough to stay up. However, there'd be one more plot twist. Carlisle won a corner in the dying seconds, and up came Jimmy Glass. In one of those you couldn't make it up moments, Glass scored from a rebounded header and was promptly swamped by teammates and thousands of fans who quite simply couldn't believe what they'd just witnessed. As for Jimmy Glass, he became an overnight celebrity, but he never played for Carlisle again, and his playing career never really kicked on after that defining moment. He took on various jobs outside of football before finding his way back into the sport as player liaison officer at Eddie Howe's Bournemouth, and most recently the general manager at non-league Wimborne. Not the fairy tale ending to one of the most Hollywood moments in football, but the name Jimmy Glass will live on forever as the scorer of that goal, arguably the most important in any club's history.
Eubank Jr versus Benn on talkSPORT. Chris Eubank Sr has turned up here. Listen to the crowd. Wow! Now it's fighting for real. Who's going to get the first telling blow in? Good right hand from Conor Benn as well. Oh, Eubank's gone. Eubank's in trouble there. The leg's done a dance. What a big uppercut from Eubank. Maybe his best punch of the fight so far. One thing Conor Benn has, he's got a good chin and he's got heart, and he's proven it here tonight. Eubank can make good body shots, right hand, left hand. Both guys here going for it. So hard. He's caught him. Benn's in trouble.
underestimated him. You know, I didn't train for a fight like that.
I was always going to be here for my son. It's a show. Suspense is part of the game.
Well, Chris Eubank Jr. Thrilled us against Conor Benn, and Conor Benn thrilled us against Chris Eubank Jr. In a unanimous decision win for Eubank at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium on Saturday night. Eubank 116-112 verdict on all three scorecards. The judges agreed on 6 of the 12 rounds. 8 rounds to 4 they scored it. I agreed with them, by the way. On the night, you had it a little closer, Spencer Oliver. Just take us through. We were hearing the excitement and thrills there in that minute underlay. But it was a very special night and a very special atmosphere, wasn't it?
It really was. It was spectacular in so many ways. And I think that all started, you know, with the build-up when we got into the stadium and you saw the crowds that had turned up, the anticipation, the family feud that went so far back. And then the old man, Chris Sr., jumping out of the car at that moment. You just went...
Pure WWE,
the whole place just erupted and you saw Conor Benn and his dad standing in the dressing room watching them both walking. It was so magical, the whole thing. And then they are their father's sons. Would they deliver? Could they deliver to the heights and the lengths of their fathers way back when, 35 years ago? And the answer was yes. They delivered. They left it all in the ring. The 12th round was one of the best rounds of boxing I've seen in a long, long time. And you know what they were going through, the heart, the grit, the determination that they both showed, the character they both showed. You know, you have to salute them for that.
A couple of times physically, both looked fatigued and were about to wilt. But as you say, they found the depths of their reserves deep inside them. And when fighters delight us in that way, and it did deliver, it delivered in droves. What anyone said about it being from the outside, and you could make the argument that it was a mismatch with a guy coming up from welterweight to middleweight, and Chris Eubank Jr. We'll come into this in a minute about the weight training as we talked with Archie Sharp, our guest just now. The weight training for Eubank at 35 coming down to 160 pounds. A hard ask for him, and yet they gave so much in every round and never relented. No one went down in the fight. The legs buckled of both men a few times. Benn had to fight off assaults on the ropes. Eubank looked tired and fatigued and hurt a couple of times. He was cut to the eye. Obviously, they gave so much in that fight. And maybe not for the purists because it was a street fight, but to the mainstream audience, it was a fight that crossed over.
It was magical in so many ways. It really was, to sit there watching that, and from a selfish point of view, go, of course I want to see it again. But we'll go through that and break it all down after this. But I'm going to say, round number 9, I looked at Chris Eubank Jr., and he was looking tired, looking fatigued. Legs were sagging, looked like he was punching through treacle, and I thought, he's got nothing left.
Yeah.
And then he found something from somewhere in that 10th, 11th and 12th round, the championship rounds. It was incredible. And I'll just go like, I know what they're going through in there, and I know where the dark places that they're going to and the soul searching they were doing, and they both delivered. The character they both showed. You know, Conor Benn is a young man, 27 years of age, and whatever weight he chooses to go at, and he will drop that down to 147 or even 154, and you go, the kid's got a bright future off the back of that. And I think that, you know, he's elevated his career in many ways off that performance, off that lost performance there, because he showed so much character in that fight. Chris Eubank Jr., you go, he's 35 years of age, and that was a hard fight, a taxing fight, and making that weight was taxing as well. And you go, you know, Benn will improve from that, and that will mould him as a fighter. For Eubank, you worry that could be the best we see of him.
Well, let's pick through that, because I need to put these things to you. For Benn, and for any fighter, when you jump up in weight and you go down in weight and jump up again in weight, yo-yoing is never healthy for you and never good. So, in my view, and I don't know if you agree with me, if they are to have a second fight, and we hear that the great Turki Al-Sheikh loved the occasion and the fight, it was sponsored by Ring Magazine, of course. Let's not forget the Fatal Fury was part of it, and it was there on the ring canvas, just as it was in the Ring Magazine event in Times Square last night. He was a big fan of what happened. Does Conor Benn stay at 160 now if they're going to rematch? and not fight for a world title next and get his business done at 160 at middleweight and have a rematch with Chris Eubank first before he goes down to 147? Because yo-yoing up and down in weight is not a clever move.
No, I think that the contracts are signed, and I think there's going to be a few sticking points to overcome to have that rematch, I think, from Chris Eubank's side, because I think, one, we could see clearly that 160 is killing him, and if he does decide to make it and get down at that weight again, there'll be no rehydration clause in there.
But what about Benn, though?
For Conor Benn, I think if he decides to drop back down to 147, that's where he needs to stay.
Yeah.
Mario Barrios is the WBC champion. That's where he needs to stay. The 160's gone then.
Yeah.
Forget about that.
Yeah.
Or he could go down to 154, which would not be such a big struggle for him, because he obviously struggles to make 147 now. He hasn't made that for like the best part of 3 years now. He boxed at 154 a couple of times. You know, why we had all these issues going on out in the States. So he's been there for a while. For Conor Benn's future lies at 154, 147 if he wants to challenge for that world title imminently. But 160 is a weight that he doesn't belong at anyway. He was too small at 160.
But if 20 million is put up for this second fight, you are advocating that he stay up there and fight Chris Eubank Jr. a second time.
I want to see it again, of course I do.
Does he win the second time? Because, as Eddie Hearn was indicating in the post-fight press conference, with no sympathy, no empathy for Chris Eubank Jr., and they're creating a narrative, Matchroom and Conor Benn, that they thought they won the fight. I do not see that.
No.
I could see a draw with 2 swing rounds. I could see 7-5 to Eubank. I scored it 8-4. I don't see how Conor Benn could be scored as winning that fight. I do not see a draw if you had those 2 swing rounds, yes. For Chris Eubank Jr., the concern is 36 hours of chronic dehydration, kept in hospital, monitored very closely. Do they force him to make 160? I think they will again. Should he do that? And will he do that, in your view?
Them fights age you. Trust me on that. At that stage of the career, like I say, Conor Benn's a young man, so he's only going to improve from that. He's developing still as a fighter. Chris Eubank Jr.'s had a long career. You know, a very long career, and he's been around a long time, and making 160, clearly he can't do that anymore, but that would have taxed him badly. Put years on his career there. I don't ever think we see Chris maybe even perform at that level again. That's where we're at with it. I think Chris Eubank Jr. needs to chase the 168 fight with Canelo Alvarez, who's shown interest in coming to England, boxing at Wembley Stadium. That's the fight that I would like to see for Eubank Jr.
That's what you'd like to see.
No, but
in reality, if there's 10 million to fight Conor Benn, who he's just won 7 rounds to 5 minimum, or 8 rounds to 4.
They do it again.
They do it again. Is he at risk physically? Is he at risk of losing this time around?
Yes.
Even though he was quite a wide winner in a close fight. It was a close fight. I'm just saying on the judges' scorecards it wasn't. Is he at risk of losing this time? And is he at risk with his health doing it again?
More importantly, with his health, yes. And I don't want to see him at 160 again. And, you know, like, if he decided to sail off into the sunset now and never box again,
I agree with you.
I'd be very happy. I like Chris as a person. I'm thinking what he's achieved is brilliant. I think he's a great character of our sport, speaks so well, so eloquently. He's brilliant, right? So if he decides he still wants to box and he goes in the ring, I don't want to see it at 160. I want to see it at 168, because health over wealth. He's got the wealth. Let's think about your health, because you're playing with fire there,
But
mate.
is it fair for Conor Benn to fight a man at 168 at 12 stone super middleweight?
No, it's not. And that's why I see.
Should they give him a couple more pounds in weight that he can make?
Well,
then make it 164 and make it a catch weight.
No, because
there's
that's
no world title on the line. It's the second championship of each
It's
other.
a massive disadvantage for Conor Benn. Conor Benn's a 147 fighter. That's what I'm saying. What we got there, what we witnessed there, was spectacular. But also, what we got on the flip side was a guy that ended up in hospital for 36 hours and was seriously ill after that.
I believe. I mean, I've written. I've committed. I mean, in the moment on the way home at 1 a.m, I put on X. It was a classic, and I maybe would like to see it down the line sometime later. By Sunday, when I heard that he was in hospital and chronically dehydrated, my top line on my column was, I hope we never see this again. That's it, one and done. Yeah. But I do fear it will be a second fight. Even though it will probably thrill us once more.
Gareth, I sound like a hypocrite saying it because, like I said to you, from a selfish point of view, from a boxing fan point of view, of course I want to see it again. It's one of the best fights I've seen in a British boxing ring. Me and you have been around a long time. We've seen a lot of great fights. That lives up there with any one of them. It was fantastic, spectacular. Both guys left it all there. Both guys, I salute them both.
All in the ring. They left it all in the ring. Literally.
But I'm thinking of the health of Chris Eubank Jr., who I like as a person, as an individual, and I don't want him to put his health at risk by boxing again at 160.
And we saw last night in Times Square just how quickly Conor Benn's recovered. You saw him on the broadcast.
He looked great.
There's hardly a mark on him.
No, because he's young.
And he was almost disfigured at the press conference last Saturday night. We've given our views on it. It's one of those dichotomies in boxing. Maybe we're softer today than we were in years gone by. But
maybe we're wiser.
Wiser as well. A very, very good word to end that section on. Do we need to be wiser? Do the boxers need to be wiser? You're watching Fight Night on talkSPORT. Welcome back to Fight Night on talkSPORT with me and him, Spencer. Come on, dance a little bit for me, Spencer. Come on, he doesn't want to. We'll be dancing in half an hour's time when the show is over. Well, it's that time of the week when joining us now to bring us right up to date with everything fight sports on talksport.com is combat sports writer George Glinsky. George? Oh! Is that a backdrop or is it real? He is in. You aren't in the attic. You're superimposed, aren't you?
Superimposed. And I have to actually tell you guys, this house has just been sold. So you probably won't be seeing this background for quite some time. I'm actually moving out. So this might be one of our last episodes with the attic.
Well, just to clarify, for people who are watching and haven't seen this segment before, George has been coming on for a couple of months now. Brilliant combat sports writer, always informed, always up to date, always working. Every weekend he gets locked in this attic by his girlfriend and his in-laws to do this section of the show. Because I was told you wouldn't be. I was just informed that you wouldn't be there tonight, and I had the shock of my life that backdrop was there.
Mate, I did as well, because when I saw George in the week, he said, I don't think I'll be in the attic this week. He said, the attic's gone up. I went, what about all the bodies in the attic? And then that's why we were so blown away.
Yeah, last minute change of plans. I was planning to come to you from a different location, but unfortunately I've been locked up here again.
No, just keep that backdrop for the whole time and they can push the food under the door wherever you are.
Are you allowed out of there, by the way? When the show finishes, does your girlfriend keep you locked up there all night?
As soon as the show finishes, I'm allowed to leave this room. It's fantastic.
Are you sure?
Freedom in my nostrils.
Lovely. Well, look, let's get underway with our top performing stories of the week. The top 3 performing fight stories. What's number 3 this week, George?
Yeah, number 3 this week. I don't know if you guys saw this. It was a bit of a shock revelation from Mauricio Suleiman suggesting that Manny Pacquiao could be returning in July against Mario Barrios for the WBC welterweight title. Of course, he's 46 years old. We haven't seen him in the ring since that defeat to Eubank Jr in 2021. This is a shock. And for a guy who's not ranked with the WBC, it's a massive surprise, and one I'm sure that won't be too popular with hardcore boxing fans.
Or Conor Benn.
No, listen, it'll be very controversial, that is for sure. But I think it's on the basis of his achievements in the ring with the WBC and an 8 different weight class world champion in Manny Pacquiao, and I believe that those rumours are very, very strong. Well, I think that we could see Manny Pacquiao back. I believe he's in training. Mario Barrios is the fighter. They probably feel that he's maybe one of the weaker of the champions, and that's the great opportunity for it. I mean, it'd be quite a story, wouldn't it? If he come back and won the world title.
We had the story of him coming back to represent the Philippines at the Olympics as well in either Japan, both Japan and in Paris, but he wasn't allowed because they'd used up their contingent of sports places in the Olympics. This is every week we hear this is what's wrong with boxing, and it's one of those that you can classify as this is what's wrong with boxing. Listen, I am a Pacquiao file. We talked about it earlier. I covered his career in detail all over the world, but I don't think him getting an opportunity against Mario Barrios to win the WBC title is fair, George.
Can I echo that as well? By the way, that I do believe. Forget his achievements and what he's achieved in the past in the ring.
He's an 8-weight world champion. Why does he need to come back and win the welterweight world title?
Not only that, guys, we're talking about this being a young man's sport, and we harp on about it all the time. And Chris Eubank Jr., is he getting slightly old now at 35 years of age? Can't make the weight. You go, Manny Pacquiao, he's 46. That's insane.
The fight with Mayweather was 10 years ago almost. Come on, George. Tell us we're wrong.
No, you're absolutely right. It shouldn't be happening. I don't think Manny Pacquiao should be in a ring again after his exhibition bout against Rakayo Ampo last year. He was outboxed, outgunned by a young, hungry fighter, but a Japanese kickboxer, not someone who's had any professional boxing experience. In fact, it was his boxing debut. So if those aren't signs that he's declining, I don't know what is.
So let's go to the second best performing story this week, George Glinsky.
An exclusive with Daniel Dubois, a hard guy to crack, always an interesting interview. He said that he's staring at the Wembley arches every single day in preparation for this fight against Alexander Usyk at Wembley Stadium. He can obviously see those on a clear day from the farm in Borehamwood where he trains. He's getting better at talking, I think. He's coming out of his skin a little bit. He gave me a couple of good lines. He said, I'm going to nail him to the canvas. I need to be more clinical. I need to be better. I need to be more vicious. That seems to be the keys to victory. He feels like he didn't have the bit between his teeth the way he should have in those later rounds against him in their inaugural encounter.
Did you not say to him that push on Alexander Usyk was it looked as if someone had told you to do it and you didn't look 100% convincing?
He said it was selling the fight. That's what he said. He didn't say it was anything personal. It was just selling the fight.
Yeah, it was a half-hearted push, to be fair. I was in the barn this morning, actually, looking at the arches. Myself, Denny Morris was in there as well, one of the bosses of News UK, and it is a fantastic place. And I'm going to tell you, because I see Daniel Dubois in there on a regular basis, he looks at that arch for 10 minutes, stands in the car park looking at it, and on a clear day, it's absolutely beautiful. He'd done that before the last fight of Anthony Joshua, 10 minutes before he trains, and about 10 minutes after he trains. He just stands there. It's a really strange thing to watch, but that's where he sort of gets his mindset.
Are you sure he's not thinking about the interview he had with George Glinsky?
Oh, did I not mention that bit?
That's what he thinks about now when he looks at the arches.
He's thinking about
the exclusive with George Glinsky.
George in the attic. Is that what he's thinking about?
Yeah, exactly. You've seen George in the attic.
I'm going to tell you this, George. Right, we have this joke here about the bodies in the attic and all that. We do it with Daniel Dubois. I always say to him, mate. He always says, I say, how's the barn, mate? Well, and he goes, what happens in the barn stays in the barn. The bodies stay in the barn. That's what he says.
And let's go to our third. Have we got a poll for us this week or not?
I was going to say no poll.
All right, we'll do our own poll here. We'll do our own poll. We'll do our own poll before we say goodbye. What's the first and most performing story for us this week then, George?
So it's obviously the news that Chris Eubank Jr. is under investigation from the British Boxing Board of Control for his weight cut. There was quite a worrying video of him cutting weight. He seemed to be in a heated bag of some kind. The British Boxing Board of Control obviously ban saunas. They don't allow fighters to cut weight. I remember Tyler Goodjohn got his licence revoked for using a sauna. Of course, there was the Paul Butler fight with John Rail Casemiro for the WBO bantamweight title. That was pulled as well, as Casemiro had used a sauna. So we don't exactly know what's going to happen. Traditionally, the board steps in before the fight and sanctions the fighter, but now that the fight has settled and we've seen those two square off, uncertainty as to whether, one, he's broken the rules, and two, whether what that punishment would be.
Tyler Goodjohn, by the way, now fighting in BKB Extreme. There's some brilliant. He sent it to me in the last 24 hours. There is a brilliant, look it up on YouTube, a brilliant documentary about his life. He's an extraordinary guy, a crazy guy, but so charming. Do we think he's already been fined £475,000 heading into this fight? I think 375 is going to Conor Benn and 100k to the board.
Yeah.
Do we feel another 100k fine coming on here?
No, the board better not take another 100k off him, because I think it's a liberty that they took that much money off him anyway for what happened under the circumstances. 100k was way too much, I believe. You know, I recognise that, you know, it's not a good look on boxing when fighters are doing things like that, but 100k for me
What
was
do they do then about
liberty.
it? What do they do about it?
Well, I think that they're just going to have to have that conversation with him about this weight making. I mean, we've been talking about how dangerous it is.
Do they have the power to not sanction the contest? And we'll talk to George about this in a moment. To not sanction the contest at 160 for him in the second fight against Conor Benn?
Of course they do.
And
of course they do.
And should they then?
Of course they should. When they look at it and see the struggles that he went to make 160, then they need to look at that strongly.
Let's get your view on that, George.
I mean, I saw you guys talking about it earlier. I equally don't want to see a rematch, and hopefully the board will come to their sense here and they'll suggest that £160 of a £10 rehydration clause just isn't possible for Eubank Jr. at this point.
Are you saying, would you like to see a rematch, but would you like to see there be a weight differential for Eubank?
I think it was so perfect.
Yeah,
I don't think
one and done. Yeah,
quite like it. So I think, you know, draw the line in the sand there, let those two go on and fight in big fights. I think obviously Conor Benn could go on and fight Barrios for WBC welterweight after a decent fight in between. And of course, Chris Eubank Jr. could end up fighting Canelo in early 2020. So they don't need much.
That's where we want to see it. We want to see Eubank versus Canelo, Barrios versus Conor Benn. They both go on and continue their careers at different weights.
George, anything else to add? What's your plans in the next week? You got any exclusives for us?
Well, I was going to say wall-to-wall coverage tonight of Canelo versus Skull. I was up last night, believe it or not, working for the Times Square card. I've had about 8 hours sleep in between, 3 cans of Coke, and I'm here. I'm living the dream. So we're going to be covering that tonight. Ajagba versus Bakoli, Sarase versus Munguir. Obviously, that amazing upset. We'll be seeing the rematch of that. Badu Jack against Mikhailian after Riziki pulled out. We're going to see that WBC Cruiserweight title finally on the line after 2 years since Badu Jack's last fight. So, yeah, going to have lots of coverage on the talksport.com website, and you can see it all at talksport.com/boxing.
Well, thanks for previewing our last section there, George. We'll get you back next week. We will get on to that in a minute. Canelo against Skull. Lovely to see you as always. Obviously, you're not in the attic. Don't fake it next time. We'll see you next week, George.
Lots of love, guys. Have a good one.
Cheers.
Cheers, George.
We'll be back after this and we'll have a DAZN look ahead to Canelo versus Skull in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia in the early hours of tomorrow morning.